Welcome to the High Performance Gym, the personal and business development podcast for health coaches and personal trainers. My name is Keir, former personal trainer and gym owner turned high performance coach and lifestyle entrepreneur. My mission is to help coaches develop their entrepreneurial qualities and the business to create a freedom-focused lifestyle. I believe we all have a uniqueness that we need to unleash to achieve this, and this is your genius. Each week I'll be bringing you an inspiring person or message to help you perform at a higher level so you can become a confident and resilient coach to build the business of your dreams. So thanks for tuning in today, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to today's show. So today we've got Kevin. Welcome, Kevin. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. So Kevin is a body and mind health coach specializing in anxiety recovery. So Kevin, can you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, honestly, I got into this field quite unexpectedly. I always remember that, when I kind of left my corporate job, I was actually looking to be a personal trainer, right? Just to follow my passion at that time. But, I'm someone who suffered anxiety for 10 years, right? Anxiety and depression. So quite a long time. And it was always that case where, man, it was tough. Like it was tough. Like I always, how I felt, just here, tightness in the chest, the anxiety, negative thinking. It wasn't great at all. But finally, after let's say, getting the help I needed, right? I first went into therapy actually. So 7 years, I didn't even know I had anxiety. Like literally, I knew I felt horrible inside, but I just said it's just my life. It's just how I feel. I never really thought anything of it at the time. Once again, I was feeling horrible, but after I realized at a point of crisis, let's say in my life, where I said no, like I can't do this anymore. I then started getting professional help, went therapy, only to just see that there was no change. I literally done therapy for 3 years and nothing. Like I was honestly really desperate to overcome what I was dealing with. But I honestly, from my experience, started seeing that, you know what, talking about it really doesn't help. Not for anxiety. It really, really doesn't. And I just felt stuck. I felt stuck. But what allowed me to then finally progress forward from that was eventually I found myself joining a coaching program. Kind of like it looked into elements of a person's wealth, health, relationships, etc. And you really deep dived into yourself to, to let's say break through the chains or limitation in your own mind as to what is possible for you. And that honestly for me formed the foundation in which finally, I just felt like a new man. I felt I'm unstoppable. I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to conquer anxiety. Nothing's going to stop me. And yeah, like, anxiety was coming, but I was, I had a more, just a better mindset around it. I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm going to get through this. And, I thought, yeah, it's going good. It's going good. And then bang, just hit, I reached rock bottom at some point. And I was like, no, why am I here again? Like, why am I here again? Like, it was just getting overwhelming basically. And I went to the deepest level of depression, but I didn't let that stop me. I said, nope, no. Okay. Like after 3 days or 4 days of just being there and just like feeling so low, I said to myself, no, okay, just snap out of it. We're going to go again. And this time I was just taking a different approach with anxiety where, it was always about the anxiety. My life had always been about anxiety at that point. And I just said to myself, you know what, Kev, what's actually important to you right now? Okay, right now. And I remember this so vividly because anxiety was kind of like creeping up around me again. And I felt it. And I was just thinking, why are you there? Right? Because there's nothing wrong, right? In this situation, anxiety, it was just creeping up on me and literally nothing wrong. I wasn't stressed. There was no distress going around me. Things were just fine. And yet there it was trying to get me again. And I was just asking, why? Why are you there? And I'd made my life so much about anxiety, about even trying to overcome it, that I said to myself, you know what, Kev, like, what do you actually want? And in that moment in time, I kind of figured out that to overcome anxiety, it's actually not about talking about the problem, not trying to understand where it comes from. And in fact, it has nothing to do with anxiety itself. It actually has everything to do with you focusing in on yourself to what you actually want. So not the anxiety, because that's what you don't want, but what do you actually want? And in that moment in time, I remember, yes, the shift was I wanted to be here, present. I wanted to enjoy my life with, my girlfriend, her family, and just be really here, just remembering even just all the love that was, around me at the time, and focusing in on that, and not just once or twice, but repetitively, over and over and over again. So eventually what would happen is just that the mind and body would get conditioned in a certain way, in which, yes, you're essentially tuning in your body and mind into that present moment again, right? And through doing that repetitively, you condition everything so that eventually your anxiety dissipates from you, right? Anxiety is that survival stress within you. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to just release it from the body such that you feel okay. Now, once I had actually recovered, I remember it so vividly because it was cool, man. I honestly, I recovered, and it was on the 10th week that things finally stopped. Like no anxiety, no bodily symptoms, even the thinking, like my head was clear. So on the 10th week that had happened, but then it took me 2 weeks to realize it had happened, right? So by the 3 month mark, right, 10 years of anxiety, and then the 3 month mark, I just remember asking out loud because everything was feeling so good. Wow, is this what happiness is? I was asking myself, right? Even before that, actually, I asked myself, is this what normal people feel like, right? Because it was amazing. Like for me, it was amazing. Just imagine if anyone has gone through even just stress, when you're stressed out, right? Or you do feel anxiety, when you feel like tightness in the chest, or maybe just you feel overworked, overwhelmed. But just imagine feeling that for 10 years, right? Predominantly in your entire life, and then finally it's just like whew, it stops. But that was a beautiful moment for me. But essentially that was my anxiety recovery story. And then, as I said, I actually wanted to help people with this after. It kind of was personal training first. Oh, you go ahead.
No, so I was wanting to kind of just bring you back a little bit there. What did that do? Like you were saying, you were struggling with it for 10 years. How did that actually how did that affect your life? Like, how did that affect the day-to-day life? What impact did that have, like, on your life? You mentioned a lot about the physiological response to it and how you were feeling internally, but what was it actually doing to your
Dude,
life?
yeah, man, it was a lot of pretending, that, and it's awful these days because I think that's especially, this is what happens with mental health as well. Like people will think that you're okay, and you're just really not. Like as I said, 7 years I spent my life just completely silent and not saying a word to anyone. So I guess it is debilitating emotionally. Okay, so beyond the anxiety, just emotionally how you feel about your own life, it's obviously never ever good. In terms of my day to day, yeah, I remember at work, because one thing is just, yes, I had the anxiety, I was depressed as well, but then you have to just get on with work, and you have to, yeah, man, it would get overwhelming. It would honestly get really, really overwhelming. I have to go off into the toilet to just clear my head, get some, some room, some space so I could actually breathe. So literally I'd go into the toilet just trying to just to breathe, just to bring it back down. So it was tough. It was really, really tough. Sometimes, yeah, and then sometimes I'd actually cry at work. Once again, going to the toilet, I just have to cry my eyes out because it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Anxiety can be so debilitating, and especially at the highest forms like panic attacks. I would experience panic attacks too, and they are never fun. And especially, I remember my first panic attack. I was so confused as to what it was. And I just felt I was suffocating. I just felt like, oh my God. And it just felt like the whole room was caving in. That actually happened to me at work as well. It felt like the whole room was caving in. I had to actually leave. I felt like crawling underneath my bed. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt. And I even had to call like a friend saying like, I'm feeling this. I didn't know it was, basically me having kind of like an anxiety attack. But I was like, oh, is this normal? Like, what's happening to me? He's like, no, dude, like, you're okay. You're okay. It's fine. I was like, okay. So it was all that. then coupled, of course, with, as I said, 'cause I worked a corporate job, and once again, that was a high pressure environment, man. Like it was literally just, you know, trying to get on with it. It was a go, go, go world. And once again, in terms of anxiety, even stress and anxiety, okay, it's so bad. It's so bad because we're taught to ignore what is going on with us, right? Not just emotionally, but just even physically. And people just like, no, no, no. They know that they're stressed out. They know that they're, feeling this tension inside. And yet society has taught us that it doesn't matter. You have a job and you need to keep on going, right? You have to, do your duties essentially. So even for me, it was stressful. It was so, so stressful as well, trying to deal with, I say, my anxiety, depression, and stress, from work, because it was literally, I was working as a consultant in technology for the financial industry. So at that point, it was just like, this is a big major project working for the Financial Conduct Authority, actually, the FCA. And this was during Brexit, when they had a project deadline of like Brexit, and everyone was like, go, go, go. And I just found myself just, working around the clock. And as I said, just not feeling good, getting home and just feeling just exhausted. And that's another thing with anxiety. You feel exhausted, absolutely exhausted, and sleep deprived. And, a lot goes on. A lot goes on. I'd say it is very, very debilitating. My mum will even ask me, because I always kept on saying, I'm just so tired. And she's like, Kev, stop that. That's all in your head. Are you ill or something? You got to stop that. That's all in your head. I was just like, once again, at this point as well, at that time, I didn't even know I had anxiety, but my mom's here telling me off, be like, oh my God, like, why do you keep on saying that? No, 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 you have to stop saying that because then it becomes true. I was like, but I really feel tired. I'm always tired, so.
It's exhausting, though, isn't it? I mean, if you're constantly in a state of high anxiety, your heart rate's elevated, from a physiological aspect, you're essentially, your energy levels are through the roof, really, aren't they? In terms of the energy that you're burning, and it's going to exhaust you. I mean, you're going to get to the end of the day and you're going to be like wiped out, and maybe not understanding why you wiped out.
Yeah, exactly. This all comes down, once again, when going to what is the physiology of anxiety, because most people do think that anxiety is this mental health problem, when it really isn't. It really, really isn't. There is the physiological response, the body in itself, that is the major key issue in actually overcoming anxiety in any shape or form, right? So stress, trauma, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, it's the body that you need to look into, because I always remember this, and especially speaking with my therapist, it was brilliant. And when I realized later in life, I was like, oh my God, like she was actually wrong. Once again, not because, I love my ex-therapist. She was great. She looked after me and done the best she could, right? That's all she could do. But, she was the professional, and it got to a conversation where I told her, every single day, I'm just waking up feeling how I feel, with the anxiety, with the tightness in my chest, and I don't think about anything. I'm telling her, I'm not even thinking about anything, and it's just the way how I feel. And then she would then say to me, Kev, come on, right? That's not true, is it? And I'm just looking at her thinking, what? I'm the one suffering here. I'm the one experiencing it. And she's just telling me this. And then she says, no, Kev, how we feel is directly related to how you think, right? So then she's, so you're thinking about something, she says. I'm like, maybe I am. Once again, she's the professional. So I'm listening to her thinking, and I'm doubting myself now, thinking, wow, maybe I am thinking about something. Maybe, and once again, I just took her word for it because she is the professional. Later on in life, I would discover, no, it's because of this physiological response, right? Where it's your nervous system that gets taxed, that gets absolutely taxed so much, right? That basically when you're going through it's basically in a normal nervous system, it's just called, what is having a healthy nervous system regulation, right? So that whole thing of your body being able to accept stress and tension, right, from your external environment, it basically, you receive it, and yes, there's a physiological survival stress response, okay, because that's what anxiety is. It's a survival stress response. When it hits you, your body obviously goes into that, kind of fight and flight. which everyone pretty much knows about with anxiety. Everyone gets that with stress as well, right? They understand that concept. But what they don't know is that when you suffer chronic stress or chronic trauma over a prolonged period of time, your body loses the ability to bring that fight and flight response back down naturally, because that's what's naturally meant to happen. If you think about caveman days, if something happened with nature or a wild animal trying to attack you, it's that brief moment of 5 to 10 minutes where you're in that fight and flight and you're trying to obviously survive the situation. But 5 to 10 minutes, that's the amount of stress we were meant to, or that we evolved to take. Now, with what is this complex world of family commitments, social pressures, stress at work, all of these things accumulated over time, plus other, let's say, one-off events like the pandemic. A lot of people got developed anxiety because of the pandemic, because it's trauma, it's stress. And once again, when I talk about trauma, I'm not talking about the experience of what happened. I'm talking about what the body is feeling, right? And when it's just constantly on a high, on a high, on a high, then once again, it loses ability to be able to bring you back down from that active kind of fight and flight. And so you're stuck there permanently because of trapped survival stress. And that's the important thing that people don't know about. So this is why someone with so much trapped survival stress in the body has their nervous system taxed to the point where it's separate to your mind. So even if you know that nothing's wrong and that your mind is clear and everything's okay, people can still feel anxiety, right? Why? Because of that survival stress that's trapped in. Hence why, as I said, I wake up every day, most of my days, just with that tightness in my chest immediately. And once again, it was just my life. And I accepted it because that's just how I woke up every single day. Later, as I said, because with the talk with the therapist, my therapist, I figured out, oh my God, it actually had nothing to do with my thinking. Nothing to do with my thinking. And so that's where people go wrong in going to therapy or CBT or counseling, because people think that you need to talk about the problem when it's not. You need to address it at the root level, where it actually resides within what is your own body. So the only way you can actually do that as well is, you need, this is what people are not aware of. It's called somatic experiencing. And somatic just means that to be in tune with the body. It is of the body, okay? So with the right somatic experiencing frameworks put in place, so certain neurosensory exercises specific to the body, someone can learn to actually be in tune with their body again. And this comes down to what is intuition, instinct of knowing what to do with that survival stress that is trapped. So, Keir, like if I asked you right now, we all do this. We can all follow our instincts. If I asked you, okay, Keir, if you're thirsty, what would you do?
You're going to grab a drink, aren't you?
You go, yeah, okay. If you are hungry, what would you do?
Yeah, grab some food, have a sandwich.
Yeah, but we don't have to think about it. We feel it. We feel it. We feel thirst. We feel hunger. And we act. We know that we need to go in search of what we want, right? So this is kind of the same thing with what is that trapped survival stress. It's we feel what's going on, the tension, the sensations, right? Anything that's going on physically with you. And then through intuition, through instinct, we rely on the body. We listen to the body to then actually tell us, okay, so what do you actually want? What do you actually feel that you need to do, right, in response to this? And that's how it works. That's how people can finally get again what is being embodied, right? To really be in tune with the body once again, because that's the thing. At the end of the day, most people, what they do is that, especially with anxiety, stress, etc., it's always that case where it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to deal with those feelings or sensations. But the thing is, the very same feelings and sensations that are uncomfortable, that usually we want to avoid, are the very same experiences of that we need to feel in order to recover. So you can't ignore it.
So how would you put that into a practical sense? Just for anybody kind of listening, how would you do that? How would you put that into practice?
Yeah, of course. So it's kind of like, once again, this is not meditation, okay? But in terms of a practice, yeah, it's if you know that you're trying to calm your mind, but meditation can't work for this, because once again, meditation is the mind, and meditation, you're trying to use it in a way that you're already in a safe and kind of stable environment. Okay, so when you're in the middle of it, that's when you need to deal with it. When you actually feel those, once again, those uncomfortable sensations or symptoms that are coming up, that's the time to tackle it, right? And so for me personally, I have my own frameworks in which people can do this from the comfort of their own home. And it is just literally, once again, learning how to be in tune with the body through the neurosensory exercises that I do provide, so that it guides them into just a state of listening to the sensation, to listen and be patient with it. Basically, it's basically, when it comes to these symptoms that we're feeling, it's the worst thing we can do is try and ignore it. Most people try to keep busy, right, or distracted. And, especially in the work environment, it's all this thing of go, 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 go. But it's like, no, what your body is asking for really is that you take a pause, and you acknowledge what's going on, right? Because right now it's in the fight and flight mode, meaning in the body's kind of recognition of what's going on, something is attacking you. Something is attacking you, and you're not doing anything to, let's say, attack back, right? Because that's basically what a fight and flight is. It's either you attack back or you run away, but you're not doing either, because of course you can't see a bear, you can't see that you're in trouble, right? In terms of a survival standpoint, logically. That's why the logic comes out of this. It's not about logically, your body is still feeling that same pressure of what's going on. And so right then and there, it's no, pay attention to it. It is better to acknowledge what is going on, right? And take a pause rather than to just continue and just say, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's not fine, right? Even for myself today, anyone can get stressed. I can get stressed for sure. And I know my limits, because everyone has a certain threshold. And it's basically not letting that threshold get so high that it seems uncontrollable. Usually it's just, if you get to the threshold where you feel, okay, I'm getting a bit worked, right? Then it's like, okay, my body's telling me something. Right there, everyone knows when they're getting overworked, right? Like, it's obvious. You know when you're stressing out. And it's just like, you don't need to be that way. You can take the pause and follow. And I say, you listen. When I guide someone through these exercises, it is just paying attention to the physical touch, the physicality of your body, to the sensations that's going on, and just keeping with it, patient, very patient with it, asking and trying to figure out, okay, so do you need to tell me something? Does something need to be released? And what is this release? It could be very different. For me, for example, I've had cases where, crying or emotion gets released, right? But the funny thing is, there's no thoughts attached to it, right? So if you carry out these exercises, I've done it myself. I've started crying and I started laughing at the same time, because I'm thinking, oh, wow, like, I'm crying. I have no reason why. I have no, I can't think of a reason why. But it doesn't matter, because the body all this time, from somewhere in the past, had this trapped in me, okay? And it's now telling you, yeah, this has been trapped. Cry. You've been wanting to cry for ages. You just logically, because you couldn't see anything to think about to make you cry, you don't. So here I was just crying and crying and crying and like laughing at the same time, because I couldn't think of anything that I was upset about. But it doesn't matter, because that was trapped in the body. And therefore, what happens after the cry? I feel fantastic. I feel like, wow, and it feels like what is a release. Okay, so it can be emotion. It can be just an increase in your breath, right? Because a lot of people, especially when with anxiety, people think control the anxiety, breathing techniques, right? You're trying to control it. Even when you go to meditation, all these things, it's all about control. Anxiety is not meant to be controlled. We're meant to be releasing, right? And so when you follow these practices, you can even find that, various things. You could start seeing that your breathing, as I said, it starts to really get faster. And you're not trying to make your breathing go faster, right? It just naturally happens. But just imagine in terms of breathing techniques. Breathing techniques attempt to bring your breathing back down. But here we actually have, no, our breathing's actually accelerating, because guess what? Your body is finally responding to that survival response. And so that's why the breathing's getting faster, because that's, if you imagine, once again, fight or flight, you're meant to be scurrying around. You're meant to be actually active, moving, right? And that's what it is. And once again, it's all these things that it's just trapped inside, right? That survival stress is trapped inside, and your body knows through the physicality of it how to release it. It's just that we're too smart for ourselves that we say no. No, why would we? Why would we cry? Why would we start breathing faster? This is stupid. And so we stay stuck in this mentality of like, oh, you know what? Ugh, whatever, I'll ignore it. I'll ignore it. You can't ignore it. If you ignore it, that survival stress goes nowhere. It will not go in. It just accumulates, right? And this is the thing. This is why, once again, when I mentioned the pandemic, people were fine, right? They said they were fine. It wasn't true. They were basically already at the border. They've already accumulated enough survival stress in the body where they would just think about it like a glass, right? A glass of water, and it's literally just at the edge, right? And you just put in one extra drop, and boom, it just starts overflowing. And that's basically what anxiety is. You break essentially. There's a threshold, as I said, where it just gets too much, and your nervous system just gets the front of it, where it says, like, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. Boom. Go on high alert mode because there's something seriously wrong here. Even though, once again, logically, rationally, you're not going to see what's wrong. You're just going to say, oh yeah, well, it's work stress. Oh yeah, the pandemic happened, but so what? That has nothing to do with what's going on with me right now. I'm not even thinking about it because I'm safe at home, etc. Right? So that's really clear how it works, and that's once again that's why one of my core pillars is looking into what is our physiology. Right? Our physiology comes way first beyond looking into our psychology or how we think, because it has nothing to do with anxiety. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And as I said, with me, like, I've experienced it, like that essence of feeling anxiety and knowing there's nothing wrong, right? It just makes perfect sense, it just makes perfect sense.
If you're talking about that glass of water and then it's that kind of level, what things, I mean, you're talking about the pandemic. I mean, I think that was always going to happen, wasn't it? Anxiety, depression, these types of things were always going to escalate. I mean, we don't even know yet to what extent that is going to be. I mean, that's going to be, years down the line to the implications of that. But if we're talking from pandemic aside, what things actually add to this? These days we don't get chased by bears and tigers, luckily, so, which actually probably would have been the biggest stress you could ever have. So that 5 seconds of running away from a tiger, once that's gone, it's like, whew, yeah. The rest of life's really easy. Don't have to run away from a tiger now. But what things are actually getting added to this glass? What things are actually making this overflow in today's society?
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, this is the thing. It's sometimes it's not even our fault in our adult life, because this is why people are confused as to, well, like, nothing's that bad where I should be feeling this way. But there are things that, once again, the nervous system is something very special. And the nervous system, don't forget, what its intention was always to ensure that we survive, even, as you said, if there are no bears or such. The thing is, our nervous system picks up on things from as early as birth, right? It remembers, and it gets ingrained as implicit memories, let's say, in which it feels what's going on, especially a baby, right? The babies can't think at that age. Babies can't, right? They're just very much They're very much body. That's all they know. They'll be able to recognize pain, hence they cry, but they're relying on the nervous system to help them survive in those early years. So your nervous system is predominantly running the show at this point. And it's your nervous system that will accumulate, once again, all these stresses and traumas that you go through in your early years. And once again, when I say traumas, I don't want people thinking it's the experience of what was going on, because a trauma doesn't mean that, you had to go through violence or, something like rape. It doesn't mean that at all. A trauma, once again, when we're talking about a physiological stress response, could even be something as little as, a child wanting to play and, be a free-spirited child. And then the parents saying, no, you're not allowed to play. Sit down. You can't do that, right? And that, there's a bit of trauma, right? There's a bit of trauma because the way that the body receives it, it's like, oh crap, I was just told off. There's a slight impact to that. But when accumulates, when it's little things over time, right? Little things over time like that happen time and time again, your nervous system basically, once again, when I talk about healthy nervous system regulation, it affects it where, when things are wrong, your nervous system becomes dysregulated. But that just means that your nervous system isn't able to just get you back into that baseline of calm and steady. And this is why, let's say, even for myself, I know this was a big factor, right? I didn't know at the time, but later I was kind of putting two and two together. I was thinking, yeah, my mom herself, she had a rough life, and she had a rough life bringing me up. But when someone is in distress, that person who your primary caregiver, when that person is in distress, okay, it doesn't matter what it is, if they're going through depression, if they have anxiety, if they're just stressed out from work, but if it's constant and that's the care that you're being given as a child, then that care is sensed by the nervous system. Your nervous system basically starts to recognize this is the energy, let's say, or the vibration around me, and that's what's comfortable, and that's what I'm attuning to, right? So you become attuned to your primary caregiver's nervous system as well, right? But if they have what is unhealthy nervous system dysregulation as well, right? Because they can't handle their day-to-day as well, and everything's manic for them, then guess what? Everything becomes manic for you because your nervous system is calibrating itself to theirs, right? We rely on our parents or primary caregivers' nervous system. And so things like that, once again, this is why people can't remember things from early childhood, but it's kind of why it also results in what is that, broken people come from broken homes.
So
right?
If someone's quite an anxious person, then that is going to transfer onto somebody else.
Yes. So I know my mom, right? She's I see it now a lot. I'm like, wow, my mom's a natural warrior. Like, she worries, right? She worries quite a bit. At the time, as I said, she was going through a lot of distress. She was depressed. Going through dark times herself, actually. She even told me later on in life. And, when someone like that is looking after you, right? You don't, the nurturing of that child is so important. And when that correct nurturing, right? When that correct calibration of the nervous system is not present, then guess what? Later in life, this is why I was fine. I was happy in life. Nothing was happening until I was 18, 19. Then I went to Colombia, and guess what? I received stresses because I started, or traumas, because I started figuring out about corruption, poverty. Because when I was actually living there for a year, I was in tears. Like, I was genuinely in tears, and this affected me. This affected me so much. But once again, because I didn't know how to deal with those traumas or stresses at a nervous system level, it then started to mess me up. It really did. I've even, discussed this before, and I always wondered, if I didn't go Colombia, would I be okay? And once again, it's not because I was okay. I was at a threshold, a certain trauma, a certain something came in, and that tipped me over. And then I was completely out of whack, and I didn't know how to get myself or my nervous system back in check, right? So there's things like that that can definitely affect you in the past, but even just physical traumas, right? So like a car crash, same thing. It's literally just that stress physiology, because when you go under that, when you're in a crash, even just a bicycle accident, whatever, there's trauma there, just physical, right? It's just physical, but it's impact trauma, and that can set you off as well. And once again, people are just like, I'm fine. I was fine. Like, why do I feel so bad now? And it was just an accident. I get it. I understand it, but nothing's wrong. And so, even that can affect it. Apart from that, as I said, then there is the actual trauma that people recognize as trauma, which is, when you go through really, really, let's say, adversities of what is life. And all of this basically impacts it, right? Those are basically the main three. So once again, the kind of like childhood kind of, even just complications at birth, for example, right? Complications at birth, trauma, that's trauma, right? And all these things, the little things, the pandemic's considered like, let's say the actual big traumas of experiences, because everyone was freaking out at that time, right? But kind of, the kind of childhood experiences at when you're young, then there's actual traumas, and there's impact traumas, right? Those three really primarily build up to what is, you not being able to have that healthy nervous system regulation so that you're always feeling good and okay, right? So yeah, I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, cool. So it was just kind of directing that a little bit to, let's say from a professional aspect, we're kind of like business owners, trainers, coaches, anybody who's in a professional capacity and have a high stressful job. Is this something that you see very common? People who maybe have higher levels of, I don't want to say probably is responsibility. You've got a business, it's a high responsibility. Same as you've got kids, it's a high responsibility. Do you see people with a high responsibility with a bigger cause of anxiety? Or certainly maybe it's not, or anxiety types of symptoms? Is this, do you see this as a common thing?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's common in that, yes, it happens. Does it need to happen? No. Two fronts to this, right? Which is, you can have two people going through the same amount of, quote unquote stress, right? The event in itself, but one of them receives that stress a lot more strongly. And so this, of course, goes into the perception of, what that particular event actually means to them, and therefore it affects them more, right? But in terms of, okay, look, if you do find that thing hard or stressful, then yeah, unfortunately, it is once again this it's society, right? It's just the expectation that especially with professionals or even business owners, where yeah, like it's understandable that you have a job to do, especially for business owners or entrepreneurs, because once again, it's like that's their livelihood. So they have in their mind this notion of I have to, right? But that's your mind saying I have to, but your body, it's screaming, no, you don't. Please stop. Please, 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 please stop. At the end of the day, in answer to your question, is it common? Um, yeah, a lot of people. This is why, once again, I mean, look at it this way, right? How many people do you know that genuinely wake up saying, "Oh my God, I feel refreshed. I feel so good today, like so good," and not that many, right? Not that many. They literally say, "Oh yeah, I could have still done with another hour of sleep," or even those that sleep 9, 10 hours and then just wake up just as tired. Why is all this happening? Because once again, it's your nervous system. It's been taxed. It's reached a limit where it's just like you need a break. You need a break. And this is why what happens when you go on holiday. You remove yourself from the environment of what in your mind you perceive as stress or stressful. So when you go away, you do feel better, right? I remember for myself, I would feel better. All my symptoms would drastically go down when I leave the country. So what's happening though is just that, once again, your perception of what's going on. And when you remove yourself, the stress has gone. And so now your body's just like, oh, finally, there's less stress. I have a bit of wiggle room now. It doesn't mean you know how your body has learned how to regulate itself, though. It just means you removed yourself from the stressful environment. And therefore, people feel better. But what happens as soon as they get back? Bang, right? It hits you all over again. Nothing's changed, and you're back to square one. So it just goes to show that, yeah, like when you're on holiday, you feel a lot more relaxed. You sleep better. Stress. So the whole point is just that no, here, especially in what is first world countries, once again, we're just like so like it's this go world. We're so in tune with like, no, we've got to get it done. We have to do this. We have to do that. And you're not allowing the body to heal, essentially, right? That's really it. So yes, it is common. Some people more than others, where it gets once again really, really bad, right? Real, they need professional help. And other people where, as I said, it's just a case of, do you feel good every day? Do you? And mostly no, they don't, because once again, even just family commitments, right? You got to wake up for the kids, you got to do this, and everything. You'll notice it, especially in people's language of what they need to do in their day to day, where it's I have to, or I have to look after the kids, I have to go to work, I have to make sure that the team's running. All this have to especially with my own clients, I put importance in what is language and how they perceive the world. And it's the same thing though. Guess what? When you have to do something, that sounds stressful in itself. Right?
Straight away creates that stress, doesn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I'm gonna do this. The way
Yeah.
you say it was just say,
Yeah.
well, I want to do it. I want to get my kids up in the morning and get them ready and take them to school.
Exactly.
Is it going to be challenging? Absolutely, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
But you know what? I want to do it.
Yeah. And this is where we also need the shift. So as I said, body is a primary focus, but just in terms of what is also controlling our state is very, very important. So when I mention the state, it's of course how you feel about a certain situation. And this once again goes to, being able to control, let's say, our perception of what's going on in that current time. Because, when you immediately, as we just said, when you recognize that what you're experiencing is something that you have to do, then of course it's a have to. You're gonna feel really just stressed about it, or frustrated, or just like, oh, gotta do this, even if it is for your kids and you adore your kids, and I get that. But the fact is, if your mentality is I have to and it's not and I want to, then yes, you are just accumulating more of that stress, because at the end of the day, it just goes to show for yourself that yes, then you're exhausted and you're tired. So take a break. You don't have to do this, and that. Okay, fine. If you got to take your kids to school in this, okay, fine. But then, we need to accommodate our own lifestyle so that we're not as stressed. A lot of people, exercise is one thing. And I say good, if you want to do yoga, if you want to do exercise, that is good to supplement your life. But when it comes to anxiety, it will never, ever, ever actually tackle what is the root problem of what you're actually dealing with. Okay, this is why you can feel better when people do yoga, exercise. For sure, you can feel better in the moment, right? Because you do release some stress, but you release it in the way that you think you need to, not in the way that your body is telling you it needs, right? Because it's very different. Your body never asks you, please go into these different positions of yoga stretches, or please start, lifting these weights here and there. It's not, you never get that from as a body response. As I said, it will literally come out as emotion, breathing changes. You might even feel that you want to scream, as an example, right? Because once again, it's all this tension that's in you, and your body naturally knows what it feels like doing. And so it's very important to listen to it. But in today's world, I think most people are just stressed, and it always just goes to, it always show just in how they feel in their day to day, right? If you're not waking up feeling good, refreshed, then you're probably overworked, you're sleep deprived, and all of that, right? Especially sleep. If you don't get sleep, then obviously that's a very important part of recovery, and that impacts your nervous system, your mood, your state, and only then amplifies the anxiety that you already have, because of course you don't have the energy, basically, right? You're lacking the energy. So, in my eyes, yes, everyone says they're okay, even the party animals, right? They're like, oh yeah, I feel good, I can do this all day, all night. And then what happens? Weekend comes, crash, right? They crash, literally, just like they lay in bed all day. Why? Because no, we rely on stimulants, coffee, Red Bull, all these things to keep us going. Because especially it's terrible. It is terrible that, we think, oh, we're feeling drained, we're feeling a bit like, a bit down. Okay, I need to get my morning coffee and to get me through the day. But even just that mentality, it just means that once again, you're relying on a substance to keep you going, right? Forcing your body to do something that it really doesn't want to do. And this is where we get trapped, because once again, it all just stems from this fact of, what society expects of us in terms of being a parent, being, a loving husband or wife, being an employee, or even just a business owner, wherever it is. They're all expectations of how we have to lead our life. And that can be all good in the sense that, yes, we do want to, at some level, do these things, but we need to also then give some room for the body, right? And I'm not just talking about going to have a workout or doing your yoga practice. I'm talking about, no, pausing in life, just giving yourself just 10 minutes, 10 minutes to just, when you're getting just at that threshold where you feel, just bring it away, listen to your body, pause, and recalibrate, right? Bring yourself back to that baseline where you feel good again. And honestly, with these practices, and once again, talking about somatic experiencing, that's exactly what you achieve. The whole point is that, it's, I don't know, what's the comparison here? It's like, we're building resilience. That's what we're doing with these exercises. We're building resilience to the stress, because it's not, this in your own workouts. You work out, right, to stimulate the body so that it can grow and adapt and grow stronger, right? It doesn't mean in a session you kill yourself, and even though you feel the stress, you naturally know, I'm tired, I'm not going to do anymore, right? You naturally know that. But when it comes to, once again, the stresses of life, we don't recognize that.
Push through
And
it,
we keep
don't
on, sorry?
we? Push through it. We push
Yeah.
through it. That's
Yeah,
essentially
yeah.
what we do.
We keep on going through, we keep on pushing through. And it's that pushing through that is honestly what is holding you back, right? It's holding you back, on top of the fact that you need to actually know how to release. Because once again, it's not just about the pausing. Pausing is good, but it's about knowing how to release. And when you can release, you feel fantastic. Once again, you feel like a weight's been lifted off your shoulder, kind of thing, because you are at that threshold. You're not bad, but you feel that, okay, like just, maybe my body is saying, stop, please stop for a moment. So take your time, stop, go through what is, once again, those neurosensory exercises, the practices to just bring you back to baseline. You feel like the weight's been lifted off your shoulder. And then we go into state, right? Because obviously you just dealt with a bit of stress, a bit of anxiety. You're feeling like, okay, there's been a release. Now it's looking into our state to say, okay, what's my objective? What's my vision? What's my goal? Okay, let's feel good again, right? And let's go at it again, right? But you just, once again, you've given your body the break. You let that stress out, right? The physiological survival stress out. And now you can go. Now, and you actually feel you're ready to go, and you're going to be in a much better headspace, both body and mind.
One of the things that I love to do, and again, I see there's kind of two things, like an internal and an external. Internal, from an internal point of view, exactly what you were saying before about that narrative, kind of the words that you tell yourself, the sentences that you use, is all contributing to how you perceive it, isn't it? For me, I love journaling. Like, I've journaled for, I don't know, probably three years now, maybe, I've done journaling for, and it is one of the most game-changing things I've done. I mean, it doesn't like change overnight, but it just allows you to see the things that you're actually writing, look back onto the things that you're actually writing, and how you can change this. But if you're doing it in a productive manner, like, things like, what am I grateful for today? What were my wins today? These little things that just
yes.
And how much do you think, from an external point of view, things like social media are actually affecting people's anxiety? And this is from like a broad range, I suppose, but how much do you think these things are actually affecting that? To me, like, social media, to me, it's great. It has its benefits, and it's certainly, I suppose, it's certainly helped a lot of people connect. Or technology in general has helped a lot of people connect through the pandemic, which has been great. I think without that, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
But there's also a really dark side to this, where I think a lot of people are absorbed in. How much do you think that is affecting, just working with the clients that you've worked with in your own experience? How much do you think that is affecting people?
Tremendously, honestly, right? Because, as you said, the intention of social media was to connect us more, but we've actually become more disconnected than we ever have with ourselves, people, and the world, our environment even. Okay, so this goes back into what is, or how do we get back into that healthy nervous system regulation? It is to be embodied. And what does embodied mean? It means that we are in tune, being present with ourselves, with the people around us, within our own environment too. And people do not take the time these days to do that, ever. When was the last time you ever thought that I actually just, once again, took a pause and just looked at the scenery and just was there with nature, and just, you're there, you're actually there. You're not trying to walk the dog. No, that's not what I'm talking about either, because people think, I'm with nature all the time. So, no, but you're still doing it with a purpose, with an intention of, you are walking the dog.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were just being, right? And that's what people don't get. That's what it is to be embodied and to learn how to regulate ourselves again, is to just take a moment and just connect with the actual world, right? The actual world. So that's basically, for me, I'm not saying, social media is 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 the culprit in terms of a root cause, but it distracts people from actually just being embodied, to being in tune with the environment again. Because of course, when you're bored, what do most people do? Without even thinking about it, just get the phone on social media. When was the last time someone ever thought, "Oh, I'm bored, but you know what? I'm just going to look at the birds. I'm just going to just look around me, see the colors, right? And just examine it." And that's the thing. Like, you have to think about, okay, what if we didn't have a phone? What would we do instead, right? Even if you were bored and you thought, oh, I'm not going to do anything myself, you'd go and actually see your friends and meet people and talk and socialize, which once again brings us to back into present moment and engaging, right? And that engagement with people, or connection with people, the world, our environment, etc., is actually what is the thing that will re-regulate our nervous system again. That's all your nervous system looking for, is can you connect again, right, with your external environment and with yourself, right, in the body too. Okay. And so that's really it. So as I said, social media, it's not the major culprit. It's just the distraction from getting us back on track, and that's really it.
It's like smoking. It's like a bad habit. I mean, I'm very, very conscious now of, because I was typical person. You stand in the queue. First thing you do, you get your phone out. You go on your phone. I was notorious for that. I'm very conscious of not doing that now. I would do exactly what you just said there. If this happens to be like if I'm on the supermarket, for example, and there's a big queue, you can just see people going, oh, to get the phone out, they'll go on social media. I'll just stand and I'll watch it. I'll observe people. I'll go and pick the kids up from school and there's a bit of a backlog, there's a bit of a queue. I'll stand and I'll watch and I'll just find like what's great about it, like what looks amazing. On a night time, I'll go and stand outside and look at the stars if it's a nice night. Claire thinks I'm absolutely weird as anything. I'll go out and look for the moon and just watch the stars and things. She says, "What are you doing?" Says, because it just allows you to kind of to be with yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. That's literally it. Kid. That's the missing link that people have these days, really. And even just to go back to what is your journaling as well. I have my clients do the same, because it's really important. Because if you think about it, I do it a lot because of the reflection that you have doing it. Honestly, if you were, trying to lose weight, right, you would weigh yourself, right? You would track your weight loss, okay? When you're trying to, form a business or, do your side hustle, whatever, you're tracking the money, right? You're tracking something. But it just seems that when it comes to what is our emotions and well-being, no tracking. We're just like, oh, we feel good or we feel bad. And things have better. Yes, no. But there's no actual, once again, there's not a system behind it where you're really looking at key areas of what is your well-being as a whole. So you're saying, oh, you know what? That's improving. Okay, I need to work more on this. And you track it all, right? You track it all so that, once again, at the end of the day, you're not able to monitor, right, what you don't track. I can't monitor, how I feel or how someone else feels if we don't track these things. And when we go into journaling and the reflection portion of things, absolutely, you will start seeing certain patterns within yourself that have made your day be good or that have made your day be bad. And you can literally start just reevaluating and taking on the feedback to say, oh, well, maybe that wasn't a good thing to do. Maybe I could actually do less of that and switch it to this instead, because when I've done this, I had a good day. Okay. And this, once again, this goes back into just noticing our patterns to get into that right state. Okay. Get into the right state. That's so important, especially with anxiety recovery. State how you perceive or how you experience what's going on with you in those anxious moments, right? It's so important because, even for myself, it's this notion of like, what is it to be anxiety free? Does that mean you will never, ever, ever be anxious again in your life? And it's just like, No, because anxious feelings are just that. They're feelings. They're normal to have, right? They're normal, absolutely normal. Especially with, once again, we're going to the range of anxiety where people are afraid of what's happening with them. Yeah, like it gets really, really bad in that sense, because of course it's anytime they feel anxious again, they're like, oh my gosh, it's the anxiety. Even for me, I remember that I would question that. I recovered. In my head, I was recovered. I was like, I'm fine, I'm good. And then I was just anxious again. I'd get the same symptoms of like the tightness in the chest. I was like, you're there. And I stepped outside just for a moment. And I just stepped outside and I'm just thinking, what on earth? Like, oh, why do I feel this way? And it just kind of clicked to me, a light bulb moment for me, which was a real light bulb moment, which was, wait a second. I'm working on my business. I'm helping my mom with her business. Am I just stressed? Oh my God, I'm just stressed. These feelings are normal. Anyone would feel this way. So it's normal. And then honestly, after that, it completely changed my perception of anxious feelings. Because once again, we get, especially when people are suffering chronically from this, right? It's just a negative emotion that they feel. And they're like, no, I don't like it. Oh my God, it's frustrating that it's appearing again. It's showing its face. And so, of course, it's like the anxious feelings are just a feeling, right? Like any other. When you imagine, happiness, sadness, even just like, joy, anger, anything, right? People think, well, there's negative emotions and positive emotions. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, is sadness really a negative emotion when it comes to what is, let's say, one of your loved ones having gone through a certain incident where maybe they lost someone in their lives, right? Well, it's no good being happy about it. You would feel sad. In that case, the sadness is actually a good thing. You're able to sympathize. You're able to be, once again, human with that person. And that's all I'm trying to get with, my clients, and for anyone listening in, is just that, these feelings are normal. They're a part of being human, right? And the more you start recognizing that and changing your perception of, what anxiety is, the more you just take it as it is, and you just, realize, oh, it is just a feeling. And right now, I know it's because of this. I can do something about it. I can actually do something about it. So let me do something about it. And then let's go again to just get on with my day.
So if anybody kind of, I think, what you've kind of gone through today has been so much depth, been so insightful. I think the way you've kind of brought that over is it's so refreshing, because I think a lot of people do think it is that psychological thing. And I think one of the things that I say, well, I can never change it. And I think the way you've just really termed it, it's so different. And anyone listening now will be like, oh wow, like there's a lot of things that I can do to change that. But if you were to give someone now, just say listening in, just 3 like sort of quick pointers that they could maybe do, just to kind of get them on the right track now, what would they be? So just like 3 powerful points that would be kind of bang, bang, bang. Give it a go. See how you get on. What would they be?
3 points. Once again, we will always go into number 1, the body, right? Body's first. Body is always going to be first. And so I would always say, listen to your body and make it the priority, right? Of course, I have, as I said, my own, somatic experience and frameworks that I take my own clients through. But for just anyone, you can just literally listen and take a pause, because your body is telling you that, hey, I'm in distress. Pay attention to me, right? Pay attention to me. Think about it just in terms of like a baby, right? A baby where if they're in distress and they're stressed out and crying, do you ignore the baby? No. Do you try to get on with your day? No. You actually stop and you're like, oh crap, the baby's crying. Let me try and help you. Let me try and soothe you. And that's basically what we're trying to do with ourselves. It's amazing that as parents, we do this perfectly. But for ourselves, when it comes to us and when our well-being or that our body, right, is literally crying out for the help, it's just like, nope, I still have to get this done and that done and this done. So number 1 is just actually, once again, listen to your body and acknowledge it and take time to pause and just stick with it, kind of thing, rather than thinking I need to go off and do this. Number two, as a practical tip, um, really hard to say because obviously you say tips, and for me, like with anxiety, like it's not just it's not tips, right? And you can't just say tips because tips in themselves, they're not too useful. But the second one, as I said, and we've talked about it, a bit today, and that's your state, knowing how to feel. But this is, I guess, once again, what is, let's say, maybe known as a bit of emotional intelligence kind of thing. But it also requires a lot of emotional fitness as well, okay? Because it's like to be able to control your state, to recognize and become aware that I am feeling this way, right? It's all about, once again, reflection. At the end of the day, when I was going through my anxiety, I didn't have the science to help me, right? I was trying to, read books. I was doing my therapy, and at that time, it didn't get me the result. But finally, when I was able to, fix my mindset on things and restore certain beliefs within me, then I was always just looking at what's the next logical steps. Okay. And that came from just being aware of what was going on with me, like really aware, because most people with anxiety, they panic about it or they stress more about it. So it's like literally, and this is the awful thing about it, is just you will become more anxious because you are anxious, right? Which sucks. You have anxiety already. And because of that, because you're aware that you're feeling that way, you will get more anxious because you are anxious, right? And so, of course, it builds on. It builds on more stress. And that's why, once again, the body then feels even worse as physical symptoms are getting even worse. But that self-awareness of realizing and recognizing your state in that moment, okay? It's I always say to everyone, how you feel is a choice, right? Always. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It's always a choice on how you feel. Most people thinking, especially with anxiety, is like, oh crap. How you feel is not a choice. I'm not choosing to feel this way. It's just like, well, no, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Even just through step one, because you're ignoring it. You're ignoring step one, right? Which is the body, once again. Now, step two is just like becoming aware that, okay, you have the anxiety, but how are you reacting to the anxiety more than anything, right? How are you reacting to it? And instead of reacting, we need to be proactive in just, okay, you know what? It's happening. What can I do? Like literally just what can I actually do? Because honestly, for me, that was the process. As I said, I didn't have the science. I didn't know all of this about the nervous system at the time. I just knew what I wanted, okay? And how can I get there? That was my thinking, right? That's literally it. And once again, it was every single time I'd feel it, it was just always feedback. So never take the circumstances with anxiety as, oh my God, it happened again. Oh my God, I was so stressed out. Oh, I got a bad night's sleep. It's always like, no, but what happened to bring it to that? And we're just noticing patterns, always patterns in how we feel, so that the next time round, we're like, okay, you know what? I can do this instead. I can do that instead. And that will help you, as I say, build your state so that you feel more in control, for sure. And through repetition, because it does require repetition, all this stuff is habitual, right? But through repetition, then you build in that emotional fitness, right? Where even for me, as I said, I just, because especially in terms of the depression kind of side of things, I was just a very negative person, very, very negative. And, I blamed and complained about my situation, about people, about the whole world. And I was stuck in that frame of mind for a very long time until finally, I just realized, yes, no, it's my life and I can do something about it. And when I took that approach instead, that's when things finally changed and shifted, because it was all on me. It was never someone else. It was never the circumstances. It wasn't the anxiety holding me back in life. I was like, no, it's always me. And then through day after day of just battling it, one thing after another, that's where I built the emotional fitness. And so to this day right now, I don't like feeling, negative or having even negative thoughts. I'm actually very aware of, oh, something negative has come, right? Right. Maybe I can switch my perception. Maybe I can do this about it. Maybe I can do that about it. And awareness is definitely step number two, but that one takes definitely a lot more practice for sure. But that would be second step number two, which is become aware so that you can control your state better. Okay.
So emotional fitness, then, you can maybe compare that to going to the gym and strengthening your body.
Of course. It's the same thing.
You've got to get your reps in.
Yeah, it literally is that. It literally,
Yeah.
and people, this is the bad thing about, I believe transformation can happen very quickly, right? And this will come into point 3, really. But it can happen very quickly, right? It can really, really happen so fast. But in the general sense, yes, that emotional fitness takes time to build, because it's about, not, and I say time, I'm not saying, maybe I should rephrase this. It just requires repetition, because if you have an immersive experience of that repetition, right? So literally just going through the same thing time and time again, then it's kind of, this is a good example. If you think about learning how to drive a car, right? What's going to be better? Learning how to drive a car, one session for, let's say, I don't know, 15 weeks, right? So you have 15 sessions, right? So one session per week, 15 weeks. Would you think that's faster than just packing in those 15 sessions in 2 weeks, let's say? Who do you think is going to learn faster, right? Or get the hang of it like a lot quicker?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, from that perspective, isn't it? It's greasing the groove. And I think that, I suppose if we're relating to kind of personal trainers, and anybody who works in the gym, greasing the groove is the most important part, isn't it? It's not about the weight you can lift. It's about the movement, greasing the groove, greasing the groove. If you're doing that pattern over and over again, provided it's the right pattern, then that is going to develop a lot faster.
And I love that analogy right there, because once again, it's all patterns. That's all it is, right? Even in terms of our emotions, how we feel and how we react to things, it's all patterns. And the more you just, once again, you become aware of it and you just realize the patterns, it's like, okay, don't do this pattern. You need to change it, change your form, right? So you're doing the exercise properly and do this pattern instead. And you see that things start flowing a lot better. So, immersive experience, that's when you get transformation. And, even in with my own clients, that's exactly what I get them to do. That's why recovery can happen in a matter of weeks, because it's about immersing yourself in everything that you're doing. If you can do it, if you're only going to do it, if you go back to the gym, if you only go to the gym once or even twice per week, don't expect massive results to come, or quick or fast results to come. No, it takes the dedication. I don't even want to say it takes time. It just takes dedication. Maybe with weight loss, okay, some will argue like, oh no, but you can't lose weight that fast. But I get it, right? But in terms of emotions, right? No, you can start really training that emotional fitness in rapid timing, so long as you're willing to put yourself in, let's say, those trigger points for you, and dealing with it time after time, which was basically me, because I was basically in a situation where I was always triggered. And over 3 months, I transformed myself. Once again, 10 years of anxiety in just 3 months of just looking into myself now with more awareness and just figure out the next step. I was able to overcome everything, but that was because I was just constantly in it. Once again, an immersive experience. Otherwise, people was just like, oh no, like, I don't have to deal with it now. I can do it later. It's just like, well, don't expect to then make the change you want in life. At the end of the day, I will say this to my own clients: you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? It's the only way you're going to grow. And that's the same in the gym. When you're doing your workouts, it's the same thing. I always say to my clients as well, when I work out, I'm not like, I'm straining. I never I'm not trying to just use the same weight the whole time for the rest of the year. It's just like, no, I need to up the weight. I need to get an extra rep.
Sit on the exercise bike reading a book.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, no, of course. Any growth, it doesn't matter if it's, from the body, your emotions, mental, it requires that sense of discomfort, right? You need to be uncomfortable, right, for you to actually grow. And people don't get that. They want the easy pill, the easy solution, and it's really not. So to kind of point 1 was, once again, listen to the body. Point 2, become aware so that you are able to better control your state. And point 3, and it's a point where maybe I can frame this in 2 ways, right? Because for me, it kind of ties in with, getting a mentor, right? And this is really, really important, really, really important, because, I guess, once again, we're stubborn and we think that we can do everything by ourselves. But if that were really true, then you'd already be where you want to be at with how you feel, right? So The fact is, why the reason what we need to look into is why do people need a mentor, right? Why is it so important? Why do people progress so much when they do have one? And okay, one point of it is just accountability, but another point really comes down to beliefs, right? So people may question what are beliefs exactly, and the best let's say analogy or kind of like short story to kind of understand what belief is that if you imagine a person with anorexia, right? If you imagine that person, obviously severely underweight, okay, and everyone external to that person can see that she's underweight, right? She's really, really underweight, literally skin, bones, you can kind of see. And yet that person, when that person looks at themselves in a mirror, they can see exactly what we see, but they believe that they are overweight. They believe. So what does this show us? It shows us that our beliefs can actually distort our reality, because she or they are seeing the exact same thing as everyone else, but their beliefs make them see it in a different way. And that's how powerful beliefs are. Just imagine that. Yeah, that for me is the best example where I could really understand what a belief is. And that's how powerful it is, that it literally can distort the physical reality that we see. So just imagine, just in terms of the experiential reality that happens, which is experiences. Forget about physical, just the actual experiences and how we interpret things, right? Beliefs. When we're getting a mentor, really what we're doing is that we're trying to connect with their beliefs, right? What do they believe, so that their beliefs strengthen ours. So, this is also work I do with my own clients in terms of looking into their beliefs, right? Their belief system, because there is usually the sense of identity, an identity issue, right? Which is, this is my life. I am a person with anxiety. I am a natural worrier. Yeah, I like to worry. And all these things, these are beliefs and perceptions of how you view yourself in the world that unfortunately will always keep you stuck. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you have the best method, tools, techniques, all of it, system. It doesn't matter if you don't change your beliefs, because change, transformation occurs really from a change of beliefs. When you change your beliefs, then you can actually progress and create the change you want in your life. So this is exactly why I overcame my own anxiety. Why? Because it wasn't the science. I wasn't following anyone telling me to do this, this, or that. It was just belief in my head that said, this isn't my life anymore, right? It's not going to be my life. And that I was convinced on it that I am going to find, honestly, in my recovery, I didn't even say I'm going to find the final destination answer. I said, I'm going to find the solution to this one thing I'm dealing with right now. Right now, right? I'm not looking, steps ahead. I'm just like, no, the thing I'm dealing with right now, every single problem that arises, I was like, okay, it happened. Okay, I dealt with it. Oh, okay, now this. And I kept on going like that. But what kept me going, even as I said, because I went all the way rock bottom to the deepest level of depression during my recovery. So I was feeling fantastic, better than I ever had in my previous, 10 years. And then to go all the way back down to square zero, I was like, oh my God. But I didn't get stuck there, because the old me would have gotten stuck there. Again, it would have said, I give up. I can't do this. This is too hard. And it's not possible. But I didn't think that way. I took time to obviously just receive what happened, because I really did go into really, really bad depression then. But it only lasted 3 days. On the 4th day, I was like, right, okay, let's go at it again, right? I wasn't afraid. I wasn't thinking I was going to fail anything. I was like, no, this ain't my life anymore. Let's go. And so that's why, I wanted to kind of like break this third point into 2 parts, because it is about changing your beliefs. But changing your beliefs is very, very hard to do by yourself. It's very hard, because your beliefs are your own beliefs, okay? How you view your world it's already inbuilt into you. And so you need to do a lot of work to obviously look into yourself and see what is it that's not allowing you to, make traction with your life. A lot of the time people, especially with people who have, like, let's say, goal settings, right? This whole notion of like, oh yes, I'm trying to progress in my career or with my business. And I'm doing it for the reasons of like, I want to achieve success, right? But sometimes what you can also find is that when you look into the beliefs and the drivers as to why someone wants to do this, you'll actually find that it comes from a negative standpoint, that it's not that they positively want to pursue something, but actually that they negatively want to get away from something. So as an example, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, right? And these things, unless you become aware of it, you think I'm doing the right things by, getting on my day to day, and hey, I'm getting on with it, the job, the business, and I'm doing great. But maybe what about if that stress, that pressure that you feel, that have to, right, that have to actually comes from a negative belief where you didn't actually realize it. It's not that you're trying to gain something or pursue something, right, to become happy and fulfilled. It's actually you're trying to run away and ensure that you don't ever meet this negative outcome that, once again, somewhere in your life, it just got ingrained into you. And the thing is, you're not even aware of it. This is the crazy thing. You need to honestly, once again, look into yourself a lot to really uncover those blocks that people won't say as a block, because usually it's just like, oh, well, even in my life, I always said I wanted to do good in my career. I wanted to progress. And, I realized, only even just more recently that no, a lot of that has actually just been out of a fear of, failing my mother, like, because it's always been that, like, to just please my mother, to do everything to her standards. And you don't know this until, and this is why you feel stressed, by the way, okay? Because once again, when you're trying to get things done and it becomes a have to, and you're wondering, why is this so hard? Why do I seem like I just get burnt out like really, really quickly? It's because you're doing it from the wrong perspective, or the wrong the wrong drivers for actually trying to accomplish your vision. Instead, when your vision is purely driven by the I want this, not the I don't want this, then you become very much free flowing. It actually frees you, and you feel so differently. You feel very, very differently, and you're more productive, less stressed, and just ever flowing. But that, once again, it all comes from what are beliefs. And the easiest way to change your beliefs is to just get a mentor, right? Because it doesn't even matter that they don't teach you how to look into your beliefs. It's just the actual conversations and the, how they are, their stories, their experiences, their knowledge, all of that just gets implanted into you as new beliefs. And then you listen, and your brain's taking it on, and you finally realize, oh, I don't have to view my life this way anymore. I can view it this way, and I can start making progress. So that would be basically number 3. So kind of to summarize once again for everyone, number 1 is the body. Body's always going to be first. Listen to it, acknowledge it, take the time to just, be embodied once again, be in tune and connect with what is the world, ourselves, the environment. Number 2, the state, once again. So it's about awareness, and it does take practice and repetition for this. But after a while, you build up that emotional fitness, and then how you feel, really, you'll start realizing it's always a choice, and you always have a choice in how you feel, for sure. And then number 3, as I said, it is about beliefs, changing your beliefs. When you change your beliefs, anything's possible for you, no matter what you want, whatever, if you want to get to the next level, achieve success, overcome any obstacle or adversity, the stress, the anxiety, anything, then with beliefs, it's literally possible. Even if you didn't have, let's say, a system in place, you yourself, you just change the person to be someone that takes the action that's required to actually overcome what you're trying to deal with. And as I said, the easiest way you can change your beliefs is just through getting a mentor.
I think from that side of getting a mentor as well, it's doing due diligence and making sure that that mentor that you're actually pursuing is somebody who has the same values as you. I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. They see there's someone else's success or whatever it is, and then without doing the due diligence, they go and just hire that person, but then they're really left disappointed because they don't have the same values. They might have the same result, or the result that that person wants, but it doesn't mean they share the same values. If you're trying to kind of get into someone else's beliefs, but they don't reflect your own, or reflect your values, and that can be a bit of a sticky situation, I would say. Again, I felt for that a lot of times myself, seeing someone with a result and think, great, that person's the right person for me, but actually the values were completely off to mine. The way they got there was totally different. And I suppose you got it. Just from my perspective, just anyone who's listening, just don't jump straight into getting a coach. Like, go and ask them questions, get curious.
For sure.
and look at the work that they do, and yeah, just don't jump into anything. But
Absolutely. Like for me, it's kind of hard to say, right? But you basically just you need to know that they care, right? You need to know that they care essentially, right? That they actually give a crap about you. And for me, that's why, once again, I got into what I'm doing not because, let's say, it was my passion in life, because that was fitness, right? I said I literally wanted to become a personal trainer, but then things just shifted for me because, I thought, oh, I could help people with anxiety and just talk with them a bit to just, and then realize, oh no, like they need help. They need help with this, right? So then I shifted. I was like, you know what? Like I'm going to move this into actually, helping people with anxiety, and I do it because I've been there. I've been there, and it was horrible. And for me, it was just I do care. I genuinely do care because I've literally been in their shoes, and for me, it was the worst thing, like literally the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. And when I finally got free from it, it was, it was emotional. It was, it was a long time, man, like 10 years. And I know people who get stuck with anxiety for way longer than that, decades. I'm like, how are you even still here? Just because I said I had a tough time. I had a tough time. So, for sure, what you're saying, really important. Just make sure that whoever you do get as a mentor is someone who, let's say, is a bit more hands-on. So like it's not like this person who like has millions of followers and then you're just a number to them. It's just like, no, of course, like work with someone who is actually going to be there for you, and who gives a crap. Mostly, as I say, it's great, especially if a mentor has obviously been through what you've been through specifically, right? Because once again, that's why a lot of my clients resonate with me, because they hear my stories of my anxiety, and it helps them because obviously they're seeing the motivation of like, wow, like Kevin went through this, he went through that. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, right, that I'm going through that right now. So it's always going to help for sure when you just have that mentor who once again, that you resonate with, that that they've been through what you've been through, and yeah, that's basically the safest bet, let's say, to try and let's say do your due diligence and get the right mentor, because yeah, there are people out there. And once again, not to badmouth therapy, counseling, CBT, even other methods out there for anxiety recovery, where it's just like they're there to help, but I don't know. It's always a sticky situation because it's like they're apparently the ones who are, they're certified. They're the ones who are the professionals, once again, who are allowed to help, let's say. But the help is all like it's just like, but you can't help anyone because you don't actually know what you're doing, and you're just doing it from textbook, right? Literally that and that's the thing. And once again, it's not, sometimes it is genuinely because my ex-therapist, I knew she cared, right? I knew she cared, and that was great for me, and that's why I stuck with her for 3 years, because I knew she cared, right? She was very, very different. But once again, she couldn't get me the result because two things: she just wasn't, well, one, she hadn't actually been through it herself, right, which is always going to help. And number two, she just didn't have that level of expertise for what is anxiety specifically, right? So, like it's always this thing where, yeah, getting the right help, or once again, not to badmouth other practices, but it's always tough, right? It's always tough to see what's the right way to go, because honestly, especially with traditional ways to deal with anxiety and stress, trauma, etc., is, oh, I need to go see a therapist. That's just what we've been taught, and unfortunately, medical doctors will also do the same. They have no idea how you feel. They don't understand you whatsoever, and it's just too easy for them to just say, yeah, yeah, you have anxiety. Here's a pill, or here's this professional that I don't even know if they'll help you or not, but that's what I've been instructed to do, and that's what you need to do. And then people remain stuck. Why? Because they're not getting the right help, or at least they're not getting someone who genuinely cares. Because at least if you felt cared for, sometimes like you don't care that it's not working, but at least you got someone in your corner, right? And that's really, really important. That's really, really important. So um it's always a tricky one. It's always a tricky one when it comes to getting the right help. But I definitely think that with anxiety, I just put it out there. I'm not saying don't see a therapist, but I'm like, see a therapist and just don't it kind of expect to be disappointed a bit because talking about this, as you may have now realized through this podcast, right? It's not our thinking that needs to be evaluated. It's not. It really, really isn't. It's the survival stress, making sure our state is elevated, and restoring our beliefs. And that's really the core to what is moving forward with anxiety, right? So yeah, in terms of traditional routes to getting help, right? Just try it because I never want to discourage anyone from getting the help they need, let's say, especially if they don't have the resources, let's say. But just once again, going back into getting the right mentor, just having someone who just genuinely cares and understands you I think is always just going to be better than just being a number to even what is the NHS services here, that they're just textbook at the end of the day. They're textbook following procedure, and they just look at you as, yes, a person, but not a human being where it's just like, I'm going to look after you kind of thing.
I've got one final question for you. Okay, this is something I ask everybody who comes onto the show. You've probably heard it because I know you've been listening to it. This is about opportunity, freedom, and growth. This is kind of what I want to get people from the podcast, to have to live life on their terms, so to speak. What does freedom mean to you?
I really should have thought about this earlier because I knew it was coming. I just said, no, I'm just going to see what happens and what I come up with. I guess for me, like, not guess, I know for me, right, that I'm fully aware that the external and your own situations in life is not what causes you to feel negative at all. If that is the case, that things are cracking off, let's say, or things are going horribly wrong, and you are facing adversities. I believe that true freedom comes from the fact that you can take that on, and as I say, how you feel is a choice, right? So it doesn't matter that you're not achieving the supposed goals that you want or that things are going wrong. It's the fact that you still feel okay at the end of the day, and you always look at, well, in layman's terms, just the bright side of things, where you're like, no, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be in life. Life is always good, and life is working for me, not against me, right? That for me is ultimate freedom, because it just means that regardless of what you have in your life, your happiness is not dependent on what you have. Your happiness is truly within yourself.
Nice, good answer. I like it. I like it. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Kevin, what would be the best place to find you?
So I think best place to go would be basically just www.overcoming. Let me get this right. I don't want to get this wrong. www.overcomeanxietyfreetraining.com. And there you get
Awesome.
a free training. And
I'll put the link in the show notes anyway.
So
send me that link. I'll put that in the show notes. But thank you for
sure.
your time today, Kevin. That was awesome. I'm sure anyone listening to this is going to get a lot of value from that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Have a great week.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the show today. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you being here. If you would like some free resources to help you with your business, then click in the show notes. There is some free training, and there's also a link to my free group. If you could also share this podcast with anybody that you think would benefit from it, because this helps us actually develop the podcast and spread our message to a wider audience. So that would be very, very grateful if you could do that, and leave us a comment. Let me know how you are actually finding the show and how we can best serve you. So thank you for being here today. Click on the link in the show notes, and I hope to see you in my free group.